All right, the enhanced games went down today, and honestly, I was having a great time watching it. I thought it was super funny watching all these juiced up athletes completely fail to get near any of these world records, whether it was in the weightlifting, in the sprinting, in the pool. It was an absolute mess right up until the final event where something completely wiped the smile off my face. And I'll be honest, I even shed a tear. So literally the only world record that wasn't officially broken today, but was unofficially broken today is Cam McEvoy's 50 meter freestyle world record, which did stand at 20.88 seconds. A bloke called Kolomayev has gone out and lowered the time unofficially to 20.81 seconds today. Juiced to the gills in an illegal suit in an unofficial pool. So on top of discussing exactly why Cam McEvoy losing his world record in this context absolutely sucks, I also want to start to peel back this conversation about what does fair sport even look like, especially at the level of performance enhancing drugs. This edgelord notion that everyone's on steroids anyway, so that everyone should just be doing them. And as much as I can't stick up for the IOC, are we really going to burn all this to the ground just to fund someone's TRT clinic? Now I'm going to explain to you exactly who Cam McEvoy is and why you should be getting around this guy. So Cameron McEvoy is the official world record holder for the 50 meters freestyle. He's been representing Australia at the Olympic level since he was 17. He was also a junior world champion. So since his teens, he's basically just been at the absolute elite level of the sport. Despite the fact that Cam McEvoy was clearly one of the elite of the elites, swimming at the highest level, going to multiple Olympics, always representing us at the world championships, he was always a little bit of a bridesmaid, never quite winning an open world championships or an Olympic gold. Our story actually gets interesting after his third consecutive Olympics, the Tokyo Games, where he experienced a little bit of burnout towards the end of it and then took a break from swimming. As someone who used to swim when they were young, this is really relatable. Swimming is just notorious for being an absolute grind of a sport, especially when it comes to the training of it. It doesn't matter if you're a short distance swimmer or a long distance swimmer. Swimming coaches just have their athletes eating up miles at a ridiculous rate. And this is exactly where Cam McEvoy completely revolutionizes the way swimmers train. So like any sport that's been around for a long enough time, there's a lot of dogma and there's just a certain way things are done. And similar to experts in any field, they hate any level of outside influence. And so as I alluded to before, sprint swimmers don't really train like sprinters, at least not how we would think of training like a track and field athlete for a sprint in their sport. An elite sprinter on land who's coached well, they're lucky to rack up a couple of kilometers in a week. Meanwhile, a swimmer who's only trying to swim 50 meters as fast as possible would be doing like 30 kilometers of swimming a week. Relative to other speed and power-based sports as well, the strength and conditioning was just atrocious. So what we're actually looking at with a character that's as special as Cam McEvoy is basically like if Charlie Francis and Usain Bolt had a baby. Or if Charlie Francis, who revolutionized sprint training with his high-low model, if he actually went out there and broke the world record himself. And I know there's a bunch of you watching this video thinking to yourself right now, well, all these things are extremely obvious if you have any solid grasp of scientific training principles. But I guess it's just a very real-world example of groupthink and how dogma can just exist in a sport for years, especially without this outside influence. This is why I'm always telling people to just peek outside your bubble, see how other people are training all the time. You can always learn from other domains. Anyway, so Cam McEvoy goes from doing, 30 plus kilometers in the pool to under 2 kilometers in the pool a week. Starts borrowing other forms of pretty specific training from sprinters, like doing resisted sprints and things like that, and a real strong emphasis on just building up your body in the weight room to become a powerful athlete. Cam started to gain a lot of momentum with his new training approach in 2023, and in 2024, he won the Olympic gold at the Paris Games. In 2025, he was the world champion, and just at the start of the year in 2026, he just broke the world record, swimming 50 meters freestyle faster than any human being ever has before. And so we've got this Cam McEvoy story emerging, who's just done so much for swimming and so much to just progress the sport and push it into the future. All of that just to be robbed by a bunch of juice monkeys who are trying to fund their TRT clinic, where the TRT wasn't even the thing that helped them break the world record. It was the illegal swimsuit they were wearing. So why don't you just become a swimsuit manufacturer? Because it's weird. A lot of people seem to think that the enhanced games is like based organization. It's like, yeah, they don't drug test because they care about fair sport. It's a TRT clinic. They're just trying to sell you TRT. And like I said, today wasn't the best advertisement for it. And so I think there's probably two ways that people would push back on this. First of all, people would say, well, if Cam's so bent out of shape about this, he could just go and compete in the enhanced games himself. He was personally invited to join them. I also think it's important to address this whole conversation of, oh, everyone at the Olympics is on drugs anyway, so we already have the enhanced games. It's okay if these guys are just doing a bunch of gear and breaking world records. Which maybe we should just address that first. So James Magnussen, he joined the enhanced games because his whole shtick was, I wasn't allowed to do sauce when I was on the Aussie swim team, so I'm going to do the enhanced games and watch me break a world record now that I don't get tested for PEDs. He put on about 10 kilos of contractile tissue and swam slower than the Australian schoolboys 100-meter world record today. Sorry, that was an unnecessary stray, but I guess if it was just as simple as everyone's on gear at the Olympics anyway, why are these athletes going to the enhanced games so that they can do gear? It's because it was never about fair sport. They're trying to sell you TRT. So you've got this incredibly wholesome narrative going on with Cam McEvoy, and then you've got these corporate animals that are basically trying to turn your vitality into a monthly subscription. Now I would like to share some opinions about fair sport, or the illusion of fair sport. I'm not naive enough to think that everyone who goes to the Olympics or who wins those big international competitions or who breaks world records are all clean athletes. But this idea that there's no perfect and fair drug testing system across all nations, therefore everyone's on a boatload of sauce, is equally stupid. In reality, if you're not an absolute casual when it comes to paying attention to global sport, one of the things that would stand out is the completely asymmetrical effort that different countries make when it comes to testing and catching their own athletes. So I can speak to Australia. For example, in Australian weightlifting, there are absolutely people trying to get to these international competitions who dope. And they're like, well, all these people are doping at the highest level, so I'm going to dope my way into the Australian team. So Australia, for example, makes great efforts to drug test its own athletes. I'm not saying we're perfect, but we do it a lot more than other countries. And part of the reason we do it is fairness to fellow Australians. So yes, there's this fairness in terms of not sending these juiced up athletes to go compete internationally, but there's fairness to your fellow countrymen and women when it comes to not doping your way onto the Australian team and then embarrassing us as a nation, still not winning a medal. At least in weightlifting, obviously in swimming, much higher chance of getting a medal, whether you're on it or not. There's also, the mess we saw play out today. You really got to ask yourself, how helpful are performance enhancing drugs when you're trying to break a world record? Based on a lot of the performances we saw today, it seems like it's not as simple as just putting people on sauce and breaking world records. There's a bit of optimization that needs to be done there. Just as an aside, if you go down the rabbit hole of masterminds who've helped with doping protocols with Olympic athletes, you're talking about geniuses like Victor Conti. Go look into that guy. Why didn't the enhanced games hit him up? Or maybe they did, I don't know. That's the thing. They're not interested in breaking world records. It's just casual TRT bullshit. They're not real ones, because there wouldn't be any of this talk about doing it safely if they were serious about breaking world records. Not that, that was the most injuries per capita I've ever seen in a weightlifting contest go down today. But I guess the point I'm ultimately trying to make here is, after what you saw today, and just being honest with yourself, how much of an impact do you think steroids make? I think any reasonable person now, after seeing that, knows it's okay, me as an average person, I can't dope my way to a world record. It's probably something where if you're at the top level of your sport and you may be 0.5% off, that's sort of the edge that performance enhancing drugs give you generally. It changes per sport, but from all the evidence I've seen, performance enhancing drugs, especially steroids, they're really, really good for building muscle, and they're kind of okay, sometimes honestly negative for athletic performance. What is even more uneven than doping practices, whether it's trying to catch your athletes or trying to dope up your athletes, what's even more unequal than that is athlete funding, depending on what country they're from or what sport they play. It's so much more than steroids. It's economics. It's the culture of your country and how much they give a shit about funding the Olympic team. Access to different forms of equipment due to, again, funding or different sponsorship agreements, getting access to the best swimsuits. After today, I'm so much more confident in that swimsuit helping people swim faster than using gear. So I don't know, I feel a little bit weird about making this video because, like I said at the start, I don't like the IOC, and something does need to change with sport globally. I just don't know if it's time to burn it all to the ground for a TRT clinic backed by Peter Thiel. And I guess I'm just really bought into this Cam McEvoy story, and I guess that's really what I'm trying to do with this video. I want you guys to buy into it as well, because, you know, all these people that whinge about the fact that everyone's on steroids anyway. And I feel like we all have this deep yearning for sport to really be about not just who's trying the hardest, but also, you know, trying to think about improving training for other people so that they can also achieve new levels of performance. And Cam is just someone who's contributed to that so much. I'm like, man, like, this is everything we've wanted as drug test. Fuck me dead. This is everything we've wanted as people who look up to supposedly drug-free athletes, to be thinking about their training more critically and to be challenging dogma in their sport. Like, it's just it's brave and it's so elite, and I'm just so caught up in it. And like, please buy into this Cam McEvoy story. It's so important. Anyway, I'm really hungry. I have to go eat some dinner. I just had to make this video. Anyway, Cam's not done yet. He's in good spirits. I mean, officially he still has the world record, but I know what sort of competitive person he is, and I know he's straight back up on that pull-up bar. He'll be in the pool tomorrow morning doing his resisted sprints, and he's going to take his world record back, officially or unofficially. Like, if we could get Cam McEvoy in one of those illegal suits, he'd go sub 20. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Get around Cam McEvoy, go do your weighted pull-ups, and I'll talk to you soon.